session according to the need of industry today. Automotive industry is seeing a very big change, and I will call it a disruption, as already mentioned in the title slide. So, automotive industry is moving towards the electrification. So, electrification is not possible in a single day. It will need at least one or more than one decade. So sharing important aspects of EV and hybrid electric vehicles is the hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yeah,
you are
yeah.
audible.
Okay. So it is very important to understand what changes are being made there in the automotive industry nowadays, so that the people who are being graduated now and who are already working and has started working in the automotive industry, they should be aware about all these changes and new technologies being brought into automotive domain. So we have Mr. Sarthak Manocha, who has worked in the automotive industry in Mahindra, and now he has moved to Sweden for his masters. So he will be the speaker for today's session, and I think I will request Mane sir to give the formal introduction of Mr. Sarthak. And Mr. Sarthak, I hope he will be able to clear all the queries of the participants, and this session will be very much interesting, and all the participants will enjoy this session. And I request everyone to ask as many as queries possible, so that you must get the maximum out of this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for this short introduction. But I will also introduce today's speaker or expert who is delivering this particular session on EVs, disruptions or creation. So Mr. Sarthak is presently completing masters in Sweden, and he is almost, or let us say, he is about to submit his thesis. Before this, he has also worked in an electric vehicle startup. So he has about 3 years of experience in automotive industrial area, including entrepreneurial experience in lithium-ion battery startup. And he is presently at KTH pursuing his masters in mechatronics. And I believe his experience as well as his work in masters will definitely help all the participants. One of the reasons why we also approached him is because right now the electric vehicle industry is also in India is also just blossoming or booming. So very few people we have who actually have this will be of use not only to the students but also some of the faculty members as well as industry people who have joined in. So I now hand it over to Sarthak to kindly start with the session, and please go ahead, and we are very eager to hear or listen to you. Over to you, Sarthak.
Yeah. Hello everyone. Yeah, thank you so much, Mane sir and Jitendra sir, for introducing me. It was a very nice introduction. Yeah, I'll instead of wasting time, I'll just straight away come to the point. So good evening, everyone. So this session is on electric vehicle industry and the transition from an conventional industry of IC engines to electric vehicle industry, how we can transit and how we can develop with respect to the disruption or a creation. So I more of somewhere agree like that this industry is somewhere between a disruption and a creation. So let's start the session. So first of all, like before going on to the main topic, I would like you guys to think like why actually EVs are required in India. So just on a brief note, we will make sure that this session helps develop interest in electric vehicles, as well as how we as someone responsible or engineers can develop ourselves towards making India an EV hub in the world. So so why EVs are required for India? So that's a very important question. Like when we have so much of infrastructure already developed for the conventional IC engine vehicles, why do we actually need to shift to a very new domain? So this is basically because suppose you are planning to go on a holiday, and where do you plan to go? We generally plan to go to a hill station, or we plan to go somewhere in the forest. That is because for hiking or for trekking, that is because we want to go away from the city life and breathe fresh air, because we have been living in such an environment that the air around us is very much polluted. And this pollution is being caused by a lot of vehicular traffic. You go every day to office or you go every day to colleges and see that, okay, the air quality index is day by day deteriorating. So it is high time when we transform this place from a country where you do not see fresh air to a country where actually even when moving in vehicles we can actually breathe a lot. And to support this with a lot of studies and data, here is like 23% of the emissions all over the country is by vehicular emissions. 14 out of 20 cities in the world are like the most polluted cities belong to India. And then the case of deaths, obviously everyone knows about it. And then the infrastructure development or the hospital development or the medical infrastructure required to cure all those diseases or all those effects of air pollution makes about 54% of the GDP. So that itself is a strain, or it is a lot of stress on India's economy. So it is high time we actually stop talking about something like this and move towards reduction in air pollution. And why EVs will help in that? Because EVs have zero tailpipe emissions. And I'm not talking about any hybrid vehicles or something. I'm only talking about pure electric vehicles where your tailpipe emissions are zero. By tailpipe emissions, I mean that there is no exhaust. So it seems that you do not cause any harm to the environment and everything is renewable. Now, let's come to the second reason. Now, second reason is similar to the first one, but it is on a separate note. Now, suppose I used to wake up in the morning. I used to live in Mumbai, and living there, I used to wake up in the morning with the noise of the traffic going alongside my room. That was because it was not because of honking. It was more of because of the noise produced by the IC engine, the noise, the vibration, all that level produced by the traffic we see in India actually leads to a lot of deaths and lot of hearing problems. The average noise produced by a vehicle is around 90 to 96 decibels, but the amount of decibels required to harm a human ear is 85 decibels. So we actually live in such an environment that we have become accustomed, or at some point of the time our ears are already damaged because of the vehicular noise. But electric vehicles on the other hand is a much quieter vehicle and you only hear the road noise. I don't know how many of you guys have seen any Tesla or any other electric vehicle going past you and you actually do not get to feel, okay, there was something which went past by. It was a nice, quiet car. Now, let's shift the topic from pollution or environmental conditions to our economy. Now, this is very important because we have been importing oil since a lot of years, because we need that for a lot of industries. First is the transport industry, Then we use oil for making kerosene, which is used in a lot of generators, and then we use oil in a lot of industries or like machines. So the oil import bill of India has been on a rise since last 6 to 7 years. And if you see that graph which I'm presenting, talking about it, it's like, okay, suppose we average it to $100, $100 billion every year. So we have imported oil of approximately $700 billion in last 7 years. This is a huge amount. So using electric vehicles, I'm not saying that all our imports will become zero. Obviously, for the development of electric vehicles, we will require some materials or some of the components which will be imported, but we will reduce our dependency on oil a lot, and those imports will be definitely less than oil, because the efficiency of an electric vehicle is approximately 85 to 95% on the overall vehicle side, as compared to the efficiency of an IC engine vehicle, which is around 25 to 30% maximum. So hence the amount of imports, even if we import the whole of the vehicle, will definitely be less than the amount of import we have or amount of money we spent on the crude oil import. So it is high time we start shifting towards electric vehicles and reduce this burden on our GDP. So now we talked about why EVs are required. But okay, once we know the reason behind anything, after that we have to look into methods how we can propose that transition into our system. So now we start by analyzing different segments of the vehicle or different segments of the automotive industry, where we can start building an ecosystem of electric vehicles. So let's look into this. This is very interesting. So now in this picture, what do you see? You see different types of vehicles which we see every day on the road. So I'll start with something which we most commonly use as college students or as someone who is just going out of the house or who has just started his studies, which corresponds to two-wheelers. So now two-wheelers, India is a market where you sell approximately 99% of the world's two-wheelers. And it is just next to China in terms of amount of two-wheelers we use. So coming to that, the electric vehicle shift or the electric vehicle adaptation into the industry will definitely start from two-wheelers, or I would like to say it has already started. You must have seen a lot of two-wheelers, a lot of two-wheeler startups, a lot of companies making different types of scooters, different types of bikes, and they have shifted towards adopting electric vehicle industry. That is because the daily run is on a medium scale, like you run approximately 50 kilometers to 100 kilometers every day. You don't have to go beyond that. Your route productivity or route predictability, or basically this refers to the travel each day may be different, but the amount of travel is less. So this corresponds to less requirement of a charging infrastructure. So now, first of all, when we think about shifting towards electric vehicle, we have to make sure, yeah, okay, we have a battery, we need something to charge it. For that, something required to charge it can be at home, at our home place, or it can be at somewhere else. So now, as smaller batteries are required for a two-wheeler, it can definitely be at home. So we do not require any external charging infrastructure from the government. So this is like the very first thing where the market will penetrate, and it has already started. Now, similar is the case for three-wheelers. Like this two-wheelers and three-wheeler segment of the market also corresponds to battery swapping as well. So, and battery swapping will more of be concerned in the case of three-wheelers. Now, what do you mean by battery swapping? Battery swapping is something like you go from one place to another, and at that place, when you reach, your battery is drained out. So you reach a swapping station and you swap the battery, or you replace the battery. You replace the old battery with a new one, and you start again. So you don't have to waste time in waiting for the charging to happen or something like that. So this will be the second segment where electric vehicle will penetrate in India. And this has also started in major cities. Like if you see cities like Delhi, Ahmedabad, Indore, all cities have a lot of three-wheelers which connect railway stations to their homes, or railway stations to industrial areas, or railway stations to residential complexes, because those have the last mile connectivity. So now after these two segments, the third segment, which is very important, is intercity buses. Now, before you think about intercity buses, I want you to imagine yourself traveling in an aeroplane. Now, when you go to the airport, what do you see? Like before boarding the aeroplane, you board a bus which takes you from that terminal to the aeroplane. Or you see a lot of buses being operated there, which either are used from traveling one terminal to another, or between different aeroplanes or hangars. So now if you imagine, suppose if you replace all those buses by electric buses, how much will be the burden on that replacement? Now, talking about the route of those buses, the route of those buses are fixed. They approximately travel only for like 25 to or maybe 50 kilometers every day. So traveling 50 kilometers, it's like you require less of battery. So the very first industry or the very first transition in buses should actually happen on airports, because that's an easy business model. Then after that, we can go to public transport. Now coming to public transport, imagining somewhere in a city like Pune, where you have bus depots, or in Mumbai, where you have different bus depots. So each of the bus depots can be converted into a charging station, and you can charge the bus overnight, and the buses can be used every whole of the day, traveling around 100 to 120 kilometers in a particular segment, and then you again charge it overnight. So that is like easy penetration into the system. Now after that, we come to a fourth market, which is very important, which is light commercial vehicles. So now light commercial vehicles are like Tata Ace or Mahindra Ape, Piaggio. So these are used for transportation of goods, and they do not have fixed routes, but they have to continue working. So aggregators in India or companies in India have come up with solutions like fleet operations, where you have a fleet of light commercial vehicles, and each of them are electric, and you know that you go from one place to another, which is approximately 50 kilometers or 70 kilometers of travel, and that place is fixed. So when you reach that place, you either replace the battery at that place, or you come back with another vehicle and you charge your own vehicle there. And slowly, with the increase in the charging infrastructure, this industry will increase. And then after that, it comes to on a similar note, we will start having fleet operations in terms of Ola cabs or Uber cabs. And then it will be our private cars, which will transform to electric vehicles in India with the involvement of the charging infrastructure. So now going on the similar page, I want to show you using this graph that it has been approximated that 13% of the total two-wheeler sales in India by 2025 will be electric. But what I feel is, with the industry moving ahead, this 13% is very less. We actually need more engineers, more R&D to come into, and more companies to develop two-wheelers and replace approximately 20 to 30% of the two-wheeler sales with electric vehicle sales. So now going on to the analysis, I'll explain you something which is known as total cost of ownership. Now total cost of ownership refers to the cost of the vehicle plus the operating cost. Now, as you know, the operating cost for an electric vehicle is less, but how less? So that how less is compared here for an electric two-wheeler. This is a Hero electric two-wheeler, and the petrol bike which I use is Hero Passion. So now comparing the cost, the total cost of ownership can be divided into three different costs. First is the cost of owning the vehicle. Second is the petrol expenses or the fuel expenses on the vehicle. And third is the maintenance cost. Now coming on the fuel cost, you guys know last 1 year we have seen fuel prices being skyrocketing to approximately 100 rupees per liter. So that is very much expensive. And that is the point where you see a lot of difference between an electric vehicle and the conventional vehicle. And this is like the operating cost is very, very less for an electric bike as compared to a petrol bike. Now coming on to the maintenance cost. Now you must be seeing on the screen there is a lot of difference between the maintenance cost as well. Why is this so? For an IC engine vehicle, you have a lot of moving parts. You have pistons, you have spark plugs, you have a lot of rings playing into place. You have to replace oil on a regular basis. And all those things account for a lot of maintenance. You don't, for example, you don't have a clutch in an electric vehicle, but you have a clutch in an IC engine vehicle, and you need to replace that clutch approximately after 4 to 5 years. Or if you travel it depends on how you use the vehicle. So based on that, considering a Hero electric bike and a Hero conventional bike, we save on approximately 1.4 lakh rupees in 3 years. So that's a huge amount of money. And if each and every individual know this calculation, or each and every individual basically decides on his vehicle with respect to something like this, then obviously then we can definitely have approximately 20 to 30% of electric two-wheelers in India by 2025. So this is the mindset we need to change. I'll give you a small example on this, spending some more time on this slide. When I was in Mumbai in February this year, I used to talk to a lot of cab aggregators or people who were traveling with or who were operating Ola and Uber cabs. So the cabs there are working on CNG. Now the cost of CNG is approximately 2.5 rupees per kilometer. And if you compare that to an electric vehicle on a passenger car level, the cost of a passenger car level, it comes to around 1 to 1.5 rupees per kilometer. Now saving on that 1 rupee, adding on to the maintenance cost actually saves a lot of money. And when I was telling a lot of people, yeah, okay, why don't you shift to electric vehicle? They just had a problem with the infrastructure, and they were ready to accept it once they were explained the economics behind it. So it is very important to understand the economics behind adopting electric vehicle. So let's move ahead. Now, as before, I talked about the electric vehicle ecosystem. Before coming to the electric vehicle ecosystem, let's discuss a bit about IC engine ecosystem. The IC engine ecosystem is very well established. You know that you will have to go to a fuel station to refill your petrol or diesel. The OEM knows the amount of taxes it has to levy, or the government has defined rules on the amount of taxes we need to pay for each purchase. But when we try to transform this revolution or this ecosystem with the electric vehicle industry or with the electric vehicle ecosystem, we add a lot of players into this. So this whole chart becomes a bit complex, right? Why? Because we replace the fuel station with a charging point operator or a swapping operator. And this swapping operator will not be operated just by one person. He will be depending on various other companies or various other businesses. Like there will be one charger manufacturer. There will be one person or one company who will be doing an installation and maintenance. Then there will be a software company who will be making software for this petrol pump or for this fuel station or for this charging point operator, who will make sure that each and every data or the data for each and every battery goes to the cloud, and then other services can use them. Then there will be one renewable integration factor, which is like, what about the life of the charger? Like, what about the afterlife of the charger? So electronics, we need to think about think about something in which we can recycle electronics as well. So all these, and now coming on the other side, from the OEM side, the OEM will not be making batteries. OEM will be depending on some battery manufacturer, and he will be selling batteries to the OEM, or he will be leasing batteries. So you have a very good business model here, which corresponds to battery as a service, where you, instead of selling the battery along with the car, you actually give the battery as a service. So you reduce the amount of cost on your battery, and you reduce the amount of cost spent on the electric vehicle, because in an electric vehicle, the main cost or the major cost is of the battery and the motor. So you reduce one cost by not actually selling it, but leasing it. And after that has been used, you replace it. So using this way, OEMs can actually reduce the burden and hence reduce cost. Then you have something called battery second life and battery recycling. So these two industries will come up. So you see, like, just by changing from IC engine to electric vehicles, we can act as a country, we can develop so many different business models and so many different jobs for the people of a country in different fields. And in each and every field, you require a lot of engineers. Not only from mechanical, electrical, you require a lot of software engineers. You require a lot of chemical engineers as well. So it is a whole ecosystem development kind of thing. Now, let's start with some of technical parts. So this was like, we have now understood the industry a bit. Now we will move on to a bit of technical discussion. I know you have learned a lot of technical stuff yesterday by the professor, but I will try to give you an introduction of how the industry, or what kind of technical stuff is the industry using, and how we can transition from IC engines to an electric vehicle. So as basics, when we go from IC engines to electric vehicles, we have combustion engine and IC engine, and then there is one stage where we can use hybrid vehicles. That is like, you have either plug-in hybrid. So plug-in hybrid is like, okay, your IC engine is there, you have your battery systems or the battery plus motor along with it, and you can put in charge into the battery using a charger or a plug. That's why the name, the plug-in hybrid. And then we have pure electric. So this is like the transition. And talking about vehicle architecture, now as you can see on the screen, like the gray parts are the one which was already there or is already there in the vehicle. We replace them with something new called electric motors, electronics, battery, charger, and very important, lightweighting materials. So why are lightweighting materials required? So now a lot of companies or the whole automotive industry is researching into increasing the efficiency of electric vehicle. Now, of course, by increasing efficiency, I mean the electric vehicle efficiency is approximately 85 to 95%. Why would you increase it more? So what I want is I want enough range on an electric vehicle so that each and everyone can adopt that. And that is only possible if I reduce the road load on the vehicle. So if you guys remember from yesterday, the professor was teaching you regarding the forces acting on the vehicle, and there was one very important factor of aerodynamic drag. And that aerodynamic drag can be reduced if you reduce the weight of the vehicle. So that is the reason why we require lightweighting materials. And that is where your 3D printing comes into play, and it forms a major component of this electric vehicle industry. So now let's start with a little bit of discussion on each and every technical component and see how it works. So let's start with motors. So very important thing, very basic, and this is what we have been doing since our 12th standard. Like when we place a current carrying conductor in a magnetic field, a mechanical force is exerted, and that force can be calculated using right hand thumb rule, and that is what is represented here. And so electric motor works on this principle, but in an electric motor, we increase the number of coils or we increase the number of magnets, and we make sure that we have a constant torque or a constant force which is being rotated, that is a constant torque being produced, so that we don't get any jerks or we don't experience any hiccups in our vehicle. And that can be seen in this image on the right or in this GIF, where you have two basic components of electric motor. One is a stator and one is a rotor. So you must be seeing this forms the stator and the inner part is my rotor. And all the electric motors which you have been studying till now or which you would have studied can be work on a similar principle. It's just like over the years we have increased the technology by so that we can increase on the efficiency of the motor. So for example, if you say suppose induction motors. In induction motors, we have something called the stator and the rotor, and both the stator and the rotor have some coils inside that. So we excite the coils of the stator and those produce an electromagnetic field. And because of that, using induction or because of induction, that magnetic field produces a magnetic field inside the rotor. And then, as you can see, they form different poles, and the north and the south pole attract, and because of that attraction, the rotor rotates. Now, this was the technology which was being used till now, or you can say till last 10 years, 10 to 15 years, for approximately 100. It's a 100-year-old technology, and its efficiency was around 85%. So what people did was people said, why not we research on increasing that efficiency by replacing the stator coils or the coil inside the stator by a permanent magnet. And hence we form something called a DC motor, or you can say permanent magnet DC motor or a BLDC motor. Though there is some difference between BLDC motor and permanent magnet motor, but they work on a very similar principle that you have magnets inside and you have coils outside. So you excite the coils and that magnetic field is already permanently created. And because of that excitement, the outside coil acts as an electromagnet, and then again the same principle of attraction and repulsion happens and you basically rotate the rotor. But now in the industry, if you see what all motors are being used and how are they different from each other, let's see that. So now, as we talked about three-phase AC induction motor. So this was being used in Mahindra e-Verito and Tesla Model S. Now talking about India, you must have seen a lot of motors with respect to two-wheelers and three-wheelers, where the motors are already attached to the hub. Those are known as hub motors. So what they do, they are quite lightweight and they help in installments. They are easy to install. Those are based on the principle of BLDC, and you have two types of it. Like you must have seen either in motorcycles or in e-rickshaws, where you find in-runner motors, and in lot of scooties or scooters you find outrunner motors. Now, as motor technology developed, scientists worked on increasing its efficiency, and for increasing its efficiency, they worked on the design of the rotor. Hence, they tried changing the design of the rotor with respect to the amount of magnets used or amount of the design of the slots, like these slots where these magnets are being placed. And with respect to that, they developed various new technologies. So the newest technology which is there in the industry now is synchronous reluctance motors, where you form this is like my rotor and this is my stator. So you see these slots, you place magnets inside these slots and you use the principle of reluctance, or reluctance refers to resistance to a magnetic field. And with respect to that, you actually differ the magnetic field between the stator and the rotor such that you produce a torque. So not going into deep principles of this, we understand that we use a lot of permanent magnets in this, and permanent magnets are of two types: ferrite magnets and niobium magnets. But they are quite expensive, and they are only, or the major stock of these magnets are produced by China. So that's why whole of the industry all over the world is dependent on rare earth magnets from China. So for this reason, what motor designers are doing is they are doing something called motor CAD, in which they change the design of the slots on the stator as well as the rotor so that they can use less amount of magnets and their dependency on rare earth metals reduce. And for that, we use a lot of simulation softwares like presented on the screen, and a lot of research is being going on all over the world in order to increase the efficiency and decrease the amount of rare earth metals used in a motor. So now talking about 3D printing. So with respect to motor components, a lot of companies have been making cases using 3D printing, using metal 3D printing. And there's a company called Additive Drives, which is making coils of 3D printing, like the copper coils. So now talking about batteries. So this is like a basic battery structure in which you have a cathode and an anode, and the anode part stores the charge in terms of, in form of lithium. Now we'll talk about lithium ion batteries in general because those are the maximum being used in electric vehicles. Okay, so yeah, so anode acts as a storage part where it stores energy, and when we discharge it, all the charge travels from the anode to the cathode. So, and because of this traveling of charge and discharge, we produce electric current, and hence we use our system. This is our system here. So this is like the basics of cell. You all must be knowing about this. But now we'll talk about something about cell chemistries. So now all over the world, you must have seen a lot of abbreviations like LFP, NMC, LCO. So all these form different types of cathodes. Each and every one has its own advantages and disadvantages. We will not go that deep into it. But from a new technology point of view, we are seeing a lot of development on the anode side with respect to addition of silicon. So when silicon is added, we can actually store more amount of energy. So now just to clear some basics, by storing more amount of energy we require, what do we mean? We mean that when we charge the battery, so if the battery can store a lot of energy, then we can increase the capacity of the battery. So suppose now a battery is of a particular size and it stores 2 kilowatt hours of energy. With the same battery, same size, we can increase that 2 kilowatt hour to 5 kilowatt hour by adding some amount of silicon into it. So this is where people are researching, because people want to use similar weight or have a similar volume of the battery and want to increase the range. And for increasing range, you need more battery capacity or more battery energy. So that's why we add silicon to it. There are different other LTO chemistries as well. And nowadays there is a very upcoming topic of lithium metal, which are called solid state batteries, where we do not have much of the liquid electrolyte involved inside the cell. Rather, the whole of the cell is in form of a solid, and instead of the graphite anode, we have a lithium metal anode. But all of these things have certain advantages and disadvantages. So the most common pairs which you see in the industry is LFP, that is lithium iron phosphate with graphite, and NMC with graphite. And all the vehicles which you must have seen now on roads are based on these two chemistries only. Now cells or batteries are of different form factors, which can be cylindrical, prismatic, or pouch, and each and every form factor has its advantages and disadvantages. Like for example, if you see cylindrical is the one which have a certain standard, and it is very much easier to easier to make or easier to manufacture, and you can store a lot of energy into it. Like it has the highest energy density of all three. Then prismatic forms a stable mechanical point of view, like companies like BMW, where they do not want to change the architecture of the vehicle. They prefer prismatic because they can use previous architecture, or by architecture I mean the platform of the vehicle or the vehicle chassis design. So they use the previous or the old model architecture, and they incorporate these batteries into it. And then you have pouch cells. So pouch cell is like, okay, you must have seen your mobile phone batteries expanding. So mobile phone batteries actually use pouch cell batteries or sometimes prismatic batteries. But pouch cell is a flexible battery in which your battery can expand. So therefore, from a mechanical point of view, the structure wise, it is quite difficult to make a pouch cell battery, a bit difficult as compared to prismatic and cylindrical. But from the battery life point of view, it is very much convenient. Like it gives the highest cycle life in the industry. Then now talking about a very new technology which Tesla is being using it, that is known as cell to pack technologies. Now by cell to pack, we generally used to convert cell to a module in which we have stack of different cells, and then that system used to go into a pack. But now what they are doing is they are, instead of making a module, they are directly going from cell to pack. Like you actually you make cells or combine cells and make a complete, instead of making a module out of it, you actually make a bigger cell out of it. And companies like CATL, which is a Chinese battery company, has claimed that this increases the energy density by 15%. And we have seen that Tesla is already using them. So this is something new. So now coming on to the opportunity from engineers' point of view in battery. So in this domain, we can divide this domain into 3 phases. One is like the first life of the battery, where you use it in the vehicle. Now, after the degradation has happened to a particular extent, or after you have used it for 5 to 7 years, based on your usage, the life reduces. So now, instead of throwing off the battery, we can actually second use it, or we can develop a second life for that battery in form of grid storage. So this is a complete new business model. Companies like Nissan, what it is doing is it has taken all of its batteries and those all of its vehicle batteries, like all the Nissan Leaf batteries, which have degraded, and they have installed them in solar plants, so which act as energy storage devices or energy storage systems for renewable energy. Then there is a third business case, which is regarding recycling of batteries. So that is where you try to, instead of scrapping the material or instead of wasting the material, you try to extract all the value from it by again bringing the material into the ecosystem. So a lot of companies are coming up now with respect to recycling of battery. There is a company in India as well. And all over the world, this is being proclaimed by a lot of European and American manufacturers because they don't want to depend on the Democratic Republic of Congo for cobalt. And if we can extract cobalt from old batteries, then we can actually reduce our dependency on the countries like Democratic Republic of Congo, where people are exploited in mining of cobalt. Similarly, we can reduce our dependencies on Bolivia, where a lot of mining of lithium is being happening. So this helps in actually creating a circular economy. So point is, by this slide, what I try to inculcate is a system or a thinking of circular economy or sustainable development on a whole perspective, where we extract each and everything of our system. So now let's talk about something interesting, very interesting, which is electronics. So you see a lot of electronics in your daily life. You must be using earphones, music systems. Your laptop is electronic system. And similarly, for controlling or for effective control of batteries and motors, we require a lot of electronics and software part of it. So that forms into 2 parts, basically a motor controller, which is required for controlling the motor and making sure that you achieve whatever torque you are demanding from the user. Then for the battery, in order to ensure the safety of the battery, in order to ensure that the passenger is safe, the battery is safe, the environment is safe, the battery temperature is within the range, the voltage is not fluctuating much, we require a battery management system, which is like kind of a monitoring plus a management system. So all of this requires electronic software and hardware stuff. Now, along with this, we require a lot of software and electronics, which form a part of automotive electronics, which is like each and every system of an automotive vehicle or a vehicle, like a brake system, the steering system, the dashboard, the suspension system, all of this are becoming intelligent day by day. Why? Because we are inculcating complex control systems into them. So now for ensuring a proper control system or the proper functioning of all of them and their interaction with the user, we require a lot of automotive electronics. We have, a Tesla has approximately 20 to 25 ECUs, and that is very less. Earlier cars like BMW i4 has around 102 ECUs. So now if researchers or engineers are moving towards a phase where they want to reduce the number of ECUs. By ECUs, I mean electronic control units, so that you can reduce your dependency on the hardware, and then basically accommodate all of that into one particular board. So this is a very interesting field which is coming up. Coming on to very interesting topic of Make in India, where so now you see a lot of two-wheelers and electric three-wheelers coming up in India, but a lot of them are actually being imported from outside. So there is a very good opportunity in terms of raw materials, in terms of powertrain components, in terms of electronics, where we can develop research and development here in India. And coming to this from a IC engine point of view, we already have a lot of companies from the conventional industry or the IC engine industry, which makes engine pistons, piston rings, clutches, gearboxes, which require to be changed, or they need to transform from manufacturing these materials to actually manufacturing motors, or making copper for the motor, making batteries, or making electronic control units. So there is a lot of opportunities as well as challenges involved in this. So for fulfilling these opportunities and challenges, we require the skill set from you guys who are engineers. So now by this slide, I want to show that electric vehicle industry requires the skill set from both the mechanical point of view and an electrical electronics point of view, because the overall architecture of an electric vehicle remains same. So you require almost everything you learn in mechanical engineering, and in order to inculcate, or in order to adapt electric vehicle industry or adapt the software industry, we require something, a mix of mechanical and electrical stuff. So the engineers required are from both domains, and each and everyone has to be very much flexible in their thinking, so that they can acquire or they can learn stuff from the other industry and then adapt it in their own industry. So now before going on to the next slide, I would like you guys to actually go on this website menti.com and vote on a poll. And we will see our results here on the screen. Let's see. You can just scan this up. You can scan it, or you can go on this website and type this as one of the. We will just spend around 10 to 15 seconds in this, because we are already short on time. This is quite interesting to know. Okay, we already have some results here. Only 13 people have voted. Come on, let's participate in this. Okay, I think so. That is enough. We can move ahead with our presentation. So now, what did you see by this, or this particular poll? What do you think my next slide is on? So my next slide is on something called survival of the fittest. That is like this electric vehicle industry has become an opportunity, but it is more of a survival concern for India. Otherwise, it will happen same in terms of what happened in the case of smartphones, where Indian manufacturers were not able to build up, and everything now we have is from outside rather than something coming up from the Indian industry. So it has become a matter of survival concern where we need to move ahead, and we need to make sure that we create an ecosystem with development of each and every industry related to electric vehicle, or each and every business related to electric vehicle, and then make sure that India can stand somewhere in the world. Sorry, there must be a lot of disturbance from my side. Actually, suddenly the weather got bad and it has started raining. But yeah, we will still continue on the webinar. So now here I have something for you guys. Like these are form of learning resources which are quite important to make sure that you can learn about electric vehicles and you can implement them in the industry. Share you guys these things, but yeah, like I can share it separately if you want. I don't mind sharing them. And then we have startups. Yeah, these are some of the startups in India who are working in the electric vehicle domain in different regions of the country and in different segments of the industry. Like the first part are the people who are working from the core side or the chemistry side in batteries, in motors, developing R&D. Then these are the companies who actually make sure they develop cell to pack technology, or they develop battery technology, or they buy copper from outside or motor controller from outside or some other countries and develop electronics and R&D into India. Then these are some companies who are acting as OEMs or original equipment manufacturers. And then we have the last group of companies which are trying to automate stuff. Now slowly, the next industry which will come up is the self-driving car industry or the automotive industry. And slowly you will find features in an electric car move towards automation. Like because you already have a lot of electronics inside an electric vehicle, and it becomes easier to integrate these electronics with an autonomous system electronics, or with the software and the hardware required for an autonomous system. So you still have a lot of startups working in that domain as well. So on an ending note, I want to say that yeah, this is a very huge industry, and it is high time we move ahead with the same. So I would like to end my session here, and we can start with the question and answer discussion.
Right. So thank you, Sarthak, for such a wonderful session. So I guess we are open for discussions now. I request participants to kindly put up your questions, or you can even unmute yourself and ask questions. So will that be fine, Sarthak?
Yeah, that would be great. That is actually quite good.
Right. So actually, we have finished a bit early. We generally have the session till 8, but I think it is fine. So we have Kunal Gupta who has raised his hand. So Kunal, you can unmute yourself and ask questions. or ask your question.
Yeah, sir, am I audible?
No, your voice is breaking, but still go ahead. You can ask your question. Let us see if you're audible.
First of all, sir, thank you.
Otherwise, you can put it up in chat.
Yeah, you can put it on chat as well if you're.
My voice am I audible?
Your voice is actually breaking, so it would be great if you can write your question in the chat or.
Okay, I'm dropping in chat box, sir.
Right. So if there are any other participants, please you can ask your questions. Till the time Kunal puts it up in chat. We also have participants from AUS. So I would request if anybody from AUS would like to ask a question, you can unmute and ask, or you may ask orally. Okay, right. So I'll just check in chat if there are any questions. I'm waiting for Kunal's question, and if there are not much questions, then we might break early today, and
Or
we'll
if you want any
yes,
specific topic which you want to discuss from the PPT, because at the end there was a lot of disturbance from outside. So yeah, in case